Now we're recording, so let me go back to where we were talking about. If you're just joining us, we're talking about Eduphoria and the different customizable views you have. Um, so I will go back and share. Uh, we were right here, left off talking about these two views in Eduphoria. In Eduphoria, this can get a little tricky, especially for teachers. Um, the green is where students are now, and the red is where students were. You're like, Connor, I don't understand the difference. Okay, let's think about it this way. Let's say you were looking right now in October and you were looking at last year's 5th grade math star data. All right. If I went back onto your campus and the day of that 5th grade math star test in April, May, whatever it was, and I like took a photo of everyone who was in that room taking the test, that's what the red button is. It is like a frozen in time snapshot of who was actually taking that test in our district, in our schools, in our classes, right? But we know that since April and May, we've got some kids that left the school district and other kids have joined the school district who weren't here, right? Um, I was able to grab all of any kid who's new to the district. I grabbed their historical star records from the TEA website and uploaded them into Eduphoria. So you have star data on kids, even though they weren't with us last year. So those kids would show up under the green where students are now button. All right. And that would mean you would look at your percentages would look different because if you look on the red one, your percentage might say, 62% approaches, but the green one might say 59% approaches. Who knows? But those two filters are very important. So always be mindful of which one you're on. For which view should I use? I think it depends on the question that you're asking. If you're trying to find out, okay, Connor, of the kids I have in my school right now, how did they do on STAR last year? Then I would use the green one. If you want to know, okay, the kids that were actually here, how did they perform on STAR? That would be the red one. So just be mindful of those two things. And then we're going to keep rolling along. Also in Eduphoria, you're going to see these all kind of buttons on the top right. And if you think about it as reading left to right, they go from the universal to the specific. All right, so that globe icon right there all the way on the left, that's the entire district summary. So you can see summary data for the entire district if you're a teacher. And if you have more access like a principal or someone at Central Admin, you can even see more. The office looking building is a campus view. So that's how you would see the data broken down by campuses. The red shirt is a teacher view. So if you had, let's say, 2 6th grade math teachers at your campus, you could view it that way. And if you had the stack of books is by classes, or think of it by skyward sections. So for instance, if you're a teacher and you have a morning class and an afternoon class, you can compare both. And I want to see how the morning class did compared to the afternoon class. And then this little orange hat, green shirt, vest, whatever backpack thing, that's a student. So that will be a student view. So that will be a list of all the students. So you can toggle back and forth between any of these views, but just know those are the different ways to slice your data. I'm going to pause there real quick and check in on the questions in the chat and make sure we don't have anything. Okay, we're still good. But feel free, again, question and answer is there for you guys anytime you want it. The top 3 views that I recommend everyone should be familiar with is number 1, student scores. This is actually the default view anytime you view an assessment. It automatically goes to this one unless you specify otherwise. Student scores will give you your approaches meets masters, how the kids did on the test. The student learning standard breakdown will give you your TEKs. How did the kids do on this TEK versus how did they do on this other one? And then the student individual responses, this one's a good one, especially for some of those curriculum assessments. It's actually giving you data based on the question. So how did the kids do on this specific question? Or what was the most missed question? Or what was the most popular wrong answer choice? Maybe the right answer was C, but a lot of them guessed D. Well, let's look at that question. Let's look at D and why they guessed that. Okay, so now at this point, I want to actually go in. I'm going to stop sharing here and go into Eduphoria Aware. And so if you're able to follow along, great, and go ahead and open up Eduphoria Aware, and I actually put some of this things that we talked about into practice. So let me share that tab. All right. So here we are, Eduphoria Aware, and you should, see the stuff on the side. We're going into quick views, and for this example, I do want to just let's start with the fifth grade math star. So 23, 24, apply. Basically, I'm filtering what I can analyze. And I want to do fifth grade, and I want to do subjects math, and it's right there. If I wanted to keep on filtering, I could do filter on test types, star test, but these filters up here, or if you know the name of your assessment, you can search it by typing it in here. All right, so I want to look at fifth grade math star. Now, right from here, I can go to student scores. I can also do those other two I mentioned, the student learning standard breakdown or the student individual responses. For today, I just want to do the student scores. So let's hit apply. All right. And now remember, I'm green or red based on what I'm filtering on. So green, this would be where students are right now. So the first thing, and again, I'm looking at the campus summary. If I wanted to flip to district, I could. Um, if I wanted to flip to teachers or classes or students, those buttons that I just talked about, all right there. But let's say you're like, you know what, Connor, I don't need all this demographic data. Okay. I just want to see the totals, or maybe I just want the special ed. I don't need all the other ethnicities or demographics. This button up here, the edit button, is your friend. And there's a whole lot you can do that this edit button unlocks. This is where we're really going to get to customize our view and slice and dice our data the way we want. So in edit, you have tests, columns, and summarize. And on my slides, I said, well, what's the difference between all of these, right? It depends on what you're wanting to do. Okay. So for this one, you'll notice summarize is all of those things that were on our visual, right? Of ethnicity, emerging bilingual, economic disadvantage. You can drag and drop them anytime. So if you want to get rid of something, you can just drag it over right here and then click update. Likewise, if you wanted to add a field, like you're like, you know what, I actually want to know who their current teacher is. You can drag and drop that field at any time. You can reorder the fields and stuff like that in the Summarize tab. I also recommend using the columns view as well, because if you're like columns, I don't need a column that tells me the date they took it. I know when they took the fifth grade math star, right? Or if you're like, you know what, I don't really need the scale score. But if you wanted to see what other columns are available, all you have to do is type in the search bar and see what's on there. So maybe you wanted to do another instructor column. You could do the current instructor or the testing instructor. Again, think about those green and red filters, where they are, where they now. But for now, we're just going to leave it alone and we're going to click update. Okay, so now this has exactly what I want. It's got the entire district and it's got the SPED data pulled out. Okay, and likewise, those views would still maintain when I went to campus and when I went to teachers and students. All right, now let's say, you know what, I'm only interested in these 217 kids in Fort Worth. If you click on this, if you click on anything that's bolded, double click on it, it will create a filter for you based on what you just double clicked on. But it will open right up to the student page. So in the interest of protecting student confidentiality and making it easier for Josh to not have to edit anything on this recording, I'm going to stop sharing and then I'm going to double click and then I'm going to share the screen again. Okay, so now you see that I have only the Fort Worth campus that I've selected, all right, and I've created the filter. And where that filter lives is actually in that edit button. So in that edit button, right, you'll see now it has current campus, and if I click on that, it says is equal to 104 Fort Worth. So now you can actually play around with your filters here, and you can add another filter right there. So is equal to 104 Fort Worth, or what if I want Fort Worth and Dallas? Now it does either or. I can update. And so now I've got both campuses, right? I've still got my summarized line for SPED. So now I can slice and dice my data however I want, which is great. There's another thing you can do, which is actually, if you want to compare tests, you can compare like two tests together. So if I wanted to compare last year's fifth grade math star, and then let's say there was a TBA that sixth grade math took, I can compare that data right near. Just drag and drop, hit update, and now you can see this side by side. Here's all my star data, and here's all my weeks one math grade 6 TBA. So I can see if the kids are going up or down. And you can there's no I think you can even do like 3 or 4 tests at a time in here. So if you can really compare and slice and dice the data, and what's nice too is if you were to go to this student view, each row is a student, so you can see how did they do on their 5th grade math star, how did they do on this test. You can see how did they do on, like I said, one student all the way across. You can customize it and really get into some nitty-gritty of answering some questions. Okay? Let me jump back over to our PowerPoint, our slide deck. Okay, so we mentioned the edit button and all the cool features that that unlocks. We talked about tests, columns, and summarize. What's the difference, right? Column will add that column. Summarize, it will be that line at the bottom, right? Like the special ed indicator. And then the test itself is which test are you actually wanting to see data for? So sometimes what's actually easier is to get the columns and the summaries you want, and then just switch out the tests on the test column rather than recreating your view every time. You can also save your views as well. If you have a nice view that you like, you can save it, and any assessment you can just swap out at any time. We already talked about if I double click on that 104 Fort Worth, it creates that filter that lives in that edit page. And this is a fun feature too, is let's say you've got it all nice and you like it the way, but you're like, all right, it's in Eduphoria, but I want to take it out and I want to put it into Excel. I want to put it into Google Sheet and start doing some conditional formatting. I want to make it a Google Sheet and share it with someone else. You can hit that export button and then it'll be export to Excel. I do that often. I'll look at data a certain way in Eduphoria, then export it to a Google Sheet that I'm sharing with, maybe a principal or someone. So that feature is there, very handy. Um, and that is really it. So I'll check the questions in the chat one more time just to make sure we didn't leave anybody out. Um, but the next tech talk we'll do is Go Guardian. So that will be November 6th, around the same time, 4:15 in the afternoon. Josh will be leading that one. So if you have suggestions for future topics, please email us. These are here for you guys. We're not just doing this for our sake. We are doing this because teachers tell us like, hey, I really would love to learn more about Eduphoria. I'd love to do this. So we're doing this to help you guys. So please give us suggestions on what you want to see done or topics you'd like to see covered. Um, with that, I will say I'll leave the questions in the chat open. I'll stop the recording, but thank you guys and have a great day.